Hi everyone, welcome to our live LinkedIn Live session on reducing your operational cost by 30% with digital and AI automation. My name is Amir Kutub. I'm CEO of Enterprise Monkey, and we are quite passionate about using AI and digital in helping businesses automate and optimize their business processes. So we are celebrating our 10th year in business this year, and we started as a web and app development company, which we still do. We do websites and applications, but then we moved into software development, and from the last 3 years, we have been developing a lot of AI solutions as well. Now, when we initially started with the AI solutions, we were generally working with basically simplistic AI, or what you can say is traditional AI, where we were developing models from the scratch. But from the last couple of years, with the rise in large language model and generative AI, the space has exploded, the space has changed as well. So if you guys have any questions or any thoughts, feel free to put them in the comment section. I will be able to see those comments and I'll be able to respond to those comments as well. And apart from that, if there's any other issue, any other challenges, feel free to put them in the comment section and we'll be able to respond. I'll wait for another 30 seconds before I get started, and then we'll embark on this journey from there. All right, everyone. Well, thanks a lot for joining. So I'll share my screen. I hope you're able to see my screen. So getting started on today's topic, the very first thing that we need to look at is when we claim to reduce operational cost by 30%, why are we saying 30%? So if you look at any operational process out there, there are some tasks which you define as robot. So robot stands for repeated, obligatory, boring operational tasks. So you would identify some of the tasks in your operations that would be repeated. It could be done daily, hourly, fortnightly, monthly, but they are generally repeated at a particular instance. Secondly, they are obligatory, which means that you have to perform them to make sure that your operations are working in a streamlined way. The third thing, and most important thing is most of the time these tasks are pretty boring because you don't really want to do them, but you have to do them because that they are an essential and important task. And finally, operational tasks. So what you would see is that in any operational process out there, at least 30% of tasks would be robot, or these repeated, obligatory, boring operational tasks. And what we are aiming to do is we are aiming to use robots to replace these robots. So we are aiming to use AI or digital to be able to replace these robots so that you are not stuck in doing these manual tasks, and these tasks are being done more efficiently and more effectively. All right, so what we are going to cover today. So we would look at the current stage of AI, where we are at the moment, but I will not be spending a whole lot of time talking about that, but you can actually get that information very easily from internet. That's all available, because we are interested in how we can actually implement AI to optimize our business. Secondly, we would be looking at AI co-workers. What are AI co-workers, and what does that looks like? Then we would look at some real case studies of in achieving operational efficiency with the use of AI. Then we'll do some hands-on workshop. We'll look at developing custom GPTs, developing some AI workflow automation. So I'll actually show you live how some of those things can be done. And then finally, how do we go about developing an AI strategy? So there's gonna a lot that's going to be covered in this. And if you have any questions, any thoughts, or any comments, feel free to put them in the comment section itself. So there are four main recent enhancements that has happened to AI pretty recently. The very first one being multimodal capabilities. So initially, when ChatGPT was launched, it used to receive text input and used to produce text output. But now the large language models that we are seeing, they are not just based on text. So they have the capability to receive information in form of text, in form of images, in forms of audios or videos or any different format. Then these models also have capabilities to now produce the information in forms of text, images, audios, and videos. So the scope of the GPTs or large language models is not just restricted to chat, and that's why I'm not going to talk about the chat part of it. I'm going to focus about the automation and operational part of it. One example of this multi-model language model is Gemini by Google, and this is an example of how there is a solution that has been done by a student to a physics problem. It is in a handwritten format. A photo has been taken and been uploaded to Gemini. Gemini is not only able to understand the handwriting, but look at the solution, look at the graph, and from there understand and determine whether the answer is correct or not, and then provide the right response or provide the right answer. The next part is reasoning. So, and that's something that is pretty new to the AI world, where ChatGPT has launched, or OpenAI has launched their new O1 preview, which is a model that can actually reason. So right now, what happens is that if you ask a question, if you give it a task, it generally vomits it out in terms of whatever information it has. But now these large language models have the ability to actually reason and think like we human do about a particular problem, and then solve the problem from there. So it almost mimics how we approach a particular problem or a particular task, rather than just saying, okay, this is how it's going to be done. We think about it, and then from there reason about it, evaluate our option, and then produce a solution. And I'm going to do a hands-on demo of how this reasoning capability is particularly useful in the business cases. The third big thing that has happened in the AI world is retrieval augmented generation. Now, this looks like a big technical word, but you don't, like, in a very simple way. Traditionally, if you ask ChatGPT for a task or a question, what it would do is that it would go back into its own memory, its own training, and produce an answer from there. But that use case is not relevant for businesses. So with retrieval augmented generation, what you can do is you can place a retriever and place a context. Now, this context can be your organizational document, your procedures, your policies, your CRM database, your inventory management system, whatever it is, so that when you ask a question, now rather than ChatGPT going into its own memory and coming up with an answer, this retriever will actually fetch the information directly from your database, from your SharePoint, Google Drive, Dropbox, your files, your videos, your audios, take that information and then put it into the large language model, and then the large language model is going to be providing a response accordingly. So that response would not be generic response, that response would be according to your organizational's knowledge. And that's a big step in the whole large language model world. So we are again going to be looking at some use cases of this. And then finally, Meta Llama 3.1 is one of the biggest open source model that has come. Now, what do you mean by open source model is that you can actually download the code of this model on your company's system or server, train it, fine tune it, and ensure that all of the interactions that are happening within your organization actually stays within your organization. Although ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, they have got very extensive privacy guidelines in terms of making sure that your data is not being used to train and so on. But I know there are a lot of organizations that are very particular about making sure that everything stays inside. And with something like Meta Llama 3.1, you have got this absolute opportunity to be able to do that. And then the next thing that we are seeing more and more in these large language models is the addition of emotional intelligence or empathy. So what you are seeing on the screen is basically one of the AI models called Pi, personal intelligence, and this one doesn't just look at the logics and reasoning, but is able to explore your emotions and have that empathy inbuilt into it. So some of the prompts that you are seeing over here, this one prompt which is my favorite prompt, which is just vent, where you could just vent it out, or things like nurturing a positive mindset and so on. And that's something that we are going to be seeing a lot more. Now, what does the future looks like? What does it look like for any organization? What does it look like for your operations? Well, the future in every organization, what you would see is that every organization would have an AI brain that is going to be a central AI that would have all of the knowledge of your organization, that would have connection with your SharePoint, your CRMs, your project management systems, your financial systems. So this AI brain would have access to all of that information. And this AI management, so your CEO, board members would be able to retrieve the information from this AI brain. But also you would have these co-workers, or in scientific term, they are called AI agents. So you would be able to have these AI agents or co-workers that you would be able to use in your organization that would be working alongside with your workers. For example, if you've got a project management department, you've got say 6 people over there, you would actually have a project co-worker, which would be an AI that would be working alongside your organization to be able to doing the task. Which task? The robot task, the task that a lot of people don't want to do, the manual tasks that waste a lot of time, waste a lot of energy. And then you would have some generic robots or generic agents like email assistant and a training assistant and HR assistant and so on. So that is how every organization would look like. It would have a central brain, and then it would have these bots that would be working in different departments, and that's how the departments are going to be connected. So in terms of what we have been doing with AI and how we have been implementing AI with different organizations is by developing co-workers for different businesses. So these are some of the co-workers that you will see. These are the generalist co-workers. We have got Zola, who is an email assistant, and she's able to interact with your emails, understand the context, perform different actions that I'm going to demonstrate pretty soon. You have got Chen, who's a marketing assistant, Pooja, who's a project assistant, and then Tara, who's our HR assistant. We have built these co-workers from different ethnic diversities, different genders, to make sure that we have got this diverse input into our organization. Then you have got specialist co-workers, like we have got Sheldon, who is our reporting assistant. And then in the use cases, you would see how Sheldon actually can integrate with a lot of systems and help you with different type of reporting. You have got Maya, which we developed for one of our clients who required a very proficient grant assistant because their organization uses like their organization's funding rely on these grants. And then we have got Bob that we developed for construction industry, who's an estimator who's able to help with estimation. But more importantly, while we are working with organizations, every organization have different needs. So we are able to develop custom co-workers for them. We nurture them, we train them, we educate them, send them to school, feed them, then place them in your organization as interns. And then once they graduate, once they are fully learned, then they become your fully co-working resource. Now, without making you wait, let's dive into some real life case studies to show how these co-working agents are able to work with your organization to automate and optimize your task. But also, what I'm going to show you today is that there's some things that you can actually do with the existing tools by yourself. So we are going to go through custom GPT creations. We are going to go through make.com. We are going to go through some of these tools that you can currently use to set up these workflows without any additional help. And that's what we are going to be aiming towards. So one of the use case for or one of the work that we did with Sheldon was we had a client who was an NDIS provider, and they had to produce a huge amount of reports, progress report for their clients. Now that was a big manual process because all of the client data was sitting in Salesforce, the documents were sitting in SharePoint, and then meeting minutes and everything was sitting in Microsoft Teams. So a person was involved in taking all of the data from Salesforce, SharePoint, some handwritten notes, meeting minutes, and then put that report together, and would take that person 1 to 2 days to do that report for one particular client. So now with Sheldon, Sheldon is able to fetch all of the information from Salesforce, all of the information from SharePoint, meeting minutes from Microsoft Teams, and is able to produce that report. Now we have fed Sheldon, or we have trained Sheldon on all of the previous reports, so it knows exactly how to produce the reports. But we actually told Sheldon if there are some reports that were rejected and why they were rejected. So Sheldon is able to produce those reports. Someone, of course, has to check them, but it takes a person 10 to 15 minutes rather than 1 day or 2 day to be able to check and send those reports. Another example of Zola, our email assistant, is with email automation. So what you would see over here is a case where someone has messaged Mansi, our project manager, saying, sorry, I have been traveling for the last couple of weeks and couldn't respond to you earlier. I'm available to catch up tomorrow after 2 if that works for you. And then finally, how's the project coming along anyways? When are we expecting current milestone to finish? Now, if you see, emails that people send are very random. They don't come up with one request. There are multiple requests that are involved in those emails. So as you can see over here, there's a multiple requests that are actually involved in this email. So what Zola does is that when Zola checks this email, the very first task for her is to provide the availability of Mansi. So she goes into Mansi's calendar and then checks the availability and then responds, no problem at all. Hope your travels went well. Unfortunately, I'm not available tomorrow, but I can catch up anytime between 11 to 3 on Thursday or on Friday morning if that works for you. So this is basically Zola checking the calendar and responding. Now the next question that a person has asked is, how's the project coming along anyways? When are we expecting current milestone to finish? Now, Zola is just an email assistant. She does not have access to the project information, or she doesn't even know what project it is. So Zola goes to Pooja, which is our project assistant, and say, hey, Pooja, this person is asking about the project. Can you send me some details? And Pooja says, why not? So Pooja goes into Salesforce, first identify by email and the name who this client is, what are their current active projects, what project is this person talking about, and then goes into the project management system, fetches the status, and gives it back to Zola. And that's how Zola is able to write, the project is progressing well, milestone 3 is on track, development on these functionalities is complete, we are expecting to wrap this up by Friday, just a couple of tasks that are pending on your side, which is Cloudflare purchase, question for mentor surveys, and things like that. And then it says, let me know what time works best. So it has put it all together, and then this email is saved in Mansi's draft to be able to send. So of course, Mansi has the final control and say in terms of sending this email. But what's happening is that Zola and Pooja are working together to put this email response, which would otherwise consume at least 15 to 20 minutes for Mansi to respond. And Mansi receives a whole lot of this email. So an important thing is that we are not replacing Mansi, or we are not replacing her work. What we are doing is we are making her work more efficient and easier so that she can work towards more strategic tasks that requires human to be involved. Like, nobody enjoys replying to emails. I'm not sure about you, but I don't enjoy replying to my emails. So that's something that can be easily automated. Another use case is that we worked with an organization where they had staff who had these handwritten timesheets or handwritten logs that staff members would fulfill in. So initially we were looking to develop like an application that would allow staff to input all of the information, but some of their staff members don't like to use technology, and there was a lot of investment that was involved in there. So what we were able to do with Pooja was that staff members would do these manual handsheets, and then either give it to the admin or upload them into a Google Drive folder. Pooja would take this timesheet and then understand the text that's there and then put it in a timesheet log on Google Drive, Google Drive, Google Sheet. Now, if you have got a project management system, it can go into a project management system. But this particular philosophy does not only apply to timesheets. If you've got any information that is handwritten, which needs to be going into a system, and right now you are doing any type of manual data entry, then that can be resolved by using AI. Now, we did that, but they were happy, but that's just one piece of it. What they wanted was they wanted something more. They wanted some reports out of it. They wanted it to actually reflect in their payroll as well. So we brought in two of our other co-workers. So we brought in Sheldon and said, hey, Sheldon, look at this timesheet report and then produce a dashboard that management could have access to. So now management can have access to a dashboard that tells them exactly how people are logging their time, what tasks they are spending most of their time on, and things like that, if there are resource shortage and so on. But also triggers them on specific things like if someone has not logged their time properly or things like that. It's all available in that dashboard. Then it goes to our HR assistant. So now HR assistant is able to take that timesheet and create a payroll in Employee Hero based on this timesheet. So what it does is it looks at that timesheet and say, okay, this person has logged these times. It is able to put that timesheet into the Employee Hero, which is their HR portal, and able to produce payroll so that people are get paid on time. Now that was a huge headache for the both project team and the HR team, but just by automating it with the help of AI, we are able to resolve this problem. Another one, which is a very interesting one, is how you have these policies, SOPs, and a lot of incident documents that just sit somewhere in the folder, and if you want to look for those, very difficult to find them. But what I have found is, and one of the organizations that we worked with, their challenge was that they had these amazing statement of procedures, policies. All of these things were really well written, but no one was reading it. Even if they were doing training and so on, people were not reading it, and if there were any change, they were notifying it to the people, but that was a clunky process. So we thought, how can we actually make it fun and make it easy for people to digest it? So what we did over there was that we integrated our AI bot that would consume all of this information and then convert it into a two host podcast who would be discussing these changes. So there would be a monthly wrap up in that podcast that is all AI generated, that is going to be talking about, oh, there's been a change to this policy. Now there are some additions, there are some subtractions. This operating procedure has changed. We need to be mindful of that. And then talking about, okay, there were 3 major incidents. There were some learnings from there. It's all there in that podcast that employees can listen to when they are traveling in their car, rather than going through all of the documentations. Of course, they follow all of their process and procedure in terms of making sure people are signing and accepting the process and procedure. But what we have seen is that the adoption rate through those podcasts have increased significantly. And that's something that you can actually can do without having this full-time HR co-worker that we have developed. And I'm going to show you how you can do it yourself as well. Another very interesting one that we did was for an organization that had multiple people who were skilled in multiple things. Now, what happens is that whenever a complicated job comes up, the project manager would need to sit with the HR and team members to identify, okay, what are the resources or skill set that are required for this project, then refer back to either their memory or their skill sheet and see, okay, who from these team members are able to work on these projects, and then check their availability. Again, finding availability was a big challenge. So going through their individual calendars, finding the times, and then allocating the team. So that was a challenging process. what we did over here was that we trained Pooja to have an access to a skills map of their organization, which clearly tells, okay, these are the people, what type of skills they have got, what are their primary skills, what are their secondary skills, what are their soft skills. And then Pooja also have access to everyone's calendar. So when a new job comes in, Pooja looks at, okay, this job requires 5 skills. Who has in our organization have these skills, gets that list, checks the availability in the calendar, and then once it identifies availability, builds a team, allocate the resources, and they use Asana for their project management. So it sends all of that information, assign task, and allocate it to the right people, making sure that no one is overburdened, no one is being overused, and the right people are being assigned to the right type of job. Another one, which is an interesting one, is something where we worked with an organization to automate their purchase orders. So earlier what was happening was they used NetSuite for their inventory management, and to raise the purchase orders, they would manually check every day if something was running out of the stock, and then they were looking at the item, creating a purchase order in Xero, and then exporting it out, emailing it to the right parties, and so on. Now our AI, what it does is, our AI coworker, what it does is, it's constantly monitors the inventory and identifies that which products are going to be running out of stock. But does not only look at the quantity of the products that are in stock, but it looks at the previous history of the usage of the products. For example, if you've got a product that sells like 30 to 40 in a day, and if you have only say 80 left in your stock, and you know this is going to take 1 or 2 days for the product to arrive, then it is able to place that order. But if you've got a product that only sells once in a week, and you know that you can get the delivery pretty quickly the same day, then it won't place the order. So now that was a manual task that would earlier have a lot of errors, a lot of challenges, a lot of problems. But now, because all of the smarts are built into our inventory manager, it is able to look at the inventory, then identify the products where the purchase order needs to be placed, create that purchase order, and then send it to Zola, who's our email assistant, and email it to the right parties. If there are some approvals required, it is able to get those approvals as well. Now, in addition to this, one of the requirements that came from the client was that they also, rather than going back to one supplier for the product every time, for some of the products, especially electronic products, what they wanted to do is they wanted to make sure that they get the best price on those products as well. So now our inventory manager, rather than just creating a purchase order for one organization, what it does is it uses an AI called Browse AI. And what Browse AI does is it scrapes different websites. So it goes to JB Hi-Fi website, goes to Kogan website, goes to Harvey Norman website, check the prices for the same item in those 3 places. Wherever it can find the best price, the availability, it picks one of those and then enters that information in Xero, places the purchase order, and then Zola is able to send this purchase order as an email. Now, again, there are multiple use cases of how you can implement it in your organization. And as I said, not every case study or use case would be relevant to your organization, but this just opens up the different type of things that you can think about. So you can look at your purchase order, you can look at job allocation, you can look at training your staff on your policies, SOPs, making it easier for them to be able to access, converting handwritten timesheets into fully polished dashboards, or automating your emails. But doesn't stop over here as well. There are multiple case studies that you can take a screenshot of. So right from supplier communication to logistic coordination, to financial report summarization, to document summarization, a Q&A assistant for your policies, to improving your onboarding process, increasing your IT help desk, making it all automated, troubleshooting guidelines, making sure that they are all accessible for people every time. And I'm going to do some demos that will make it more clear. System monitoring alerts. If something is going wrong, you can place sensors. And if you've got technical systems that you can identify, you can use AI to do predictive maintenance through that. Things like policy updates and summarizing those, compliance checks. If you work in an industry where there are multiple compliances, you can train your AI co-worker so that they are always on top of this compliance game. Like, it's very difficult for a human to be able to go through thousands of pages of compliance and making sure it's all there. But if you train an AI, then it is able to retain that information, and then if you produce a document that needs to be checked according to that compliance, then you can do that, and it would provide you a good overview. And there are more things like status report automation or task assignment notifications, automated form filling. If you've got data in your inventory management, CRM, wherever it is, you can use AI to clean that data, validate that data, convert a document into audio, video, in a structured format. Suppose if you've got a simple Word document, if you want to convert it into a structured format so that it's saved in your Google Sheets or in your database, that can be all done through it. Analyzing the contracts, making sure that you're not signing off on anything which should be flagged. Communication automation. And then you've got multiple tools that I don't want to even talk about today, which is around meeting assistants and having interactive training modules and knowledge assessment and so on. But the thing is that what I'm going to show you today is that all of these things does not require a huge amount of development. There are some tools using custom GPT, using Notebook, using make.com that we are going to talk about today. You are able to do most of these things by yourself. So let's move on to the hands-on demo for 3 things that we are going to look at. I'll stop sharing and I'll share my screen again so that I can take you through our first thing. So the very first thing that we are going to be looking at is ChatGPT. This is a pro version of ChatGPT. Now, most of you would be using ChatGPT for certain use cases, but today is about exploring some more advanced use cases with ChatGPT. Now, the reason I'm showing it to you is that ultimately you should not never be using the chat version of ChatGPT. It should be all embedded in your systems, but this would allow you to at least start playing with it and understanding the capabilities, and then we can help you integrate it with your systems, make it all automated. So the very first use case that is around is one of the work that we did with a health organization was to identifying discrepancies in their medical records. So I've got a file over here that I'll attach, which is basically a synthetic medical records data set. And I am going to give it a quick prompt to say, find me the issues in this data. So I'll say, you are a helpful assistant designed to validate the quality of medical data sets. Your task is to remind whether data is valid. Now, generally, when we would implement in this organization, they would not be entering it manually. This is all gonna be happening behind the scene, getting the access to the data records and then checking and then providing the feedback from there. So I've given it some more inputs around how do you need to analyze, use your general medical knowledge, focus solely on information provided and making assumptions and so on. So now what it's going to do is it's going to go into the data set and analyze the information that's in there and look for anything that is potentially conflicting, potentially challenging. So it's not just looking at basic Excel and looking whether that data is present or not, but it also looks at some of the more critical things as well. So if the analysis has started coming, you can see it talks about the missing values, which is fine, but then it says summary statistics for glucose level, and then it starts to perform further analysis. So it says there are no allergy conflicts in this record, which is a good thing. Then says abnormal glucose level for diabetes patients. Several patients with a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes show glucose levels that are either higher than normal or with borderline. And then some patients flagged as having issues are not receiving appropriate medications for their conditions, especially those diagnosed with diabetes but without prescriptions for insulin or metformin. So it has already identified there were some patients who have been flagged with the issues, but they are not receiving appropriate medications. And then it's asking me, would you like to address any specific issues, or should I proceed with additional checks? So I would say proceed with additional checks and find me more issues. And then we'll start to do its further analysis. And you can actually see what type of analysis it's actually doing on that particular sheet. And what I've analyzed, it would fetch out some more insights. So first one is inconsistent treatment for diagnosis. So it's saying is several patients with asthma are not receiving appropriate medications like albuterol. For example, patient P004 is listed with asthma but is prescribed insulin, which is unrelated to asthma treatment. So that's an observation that can go back, and from there it can actually tell that a patient is not receiving the right treatment or there's inconsistent treatment. Then it talks about further things like diabetes patients, patient with missing treatments or no treatment plans, and so on. So it can actually identify inconsistencies in the data, and that's your first use case. Now let's look at another use case where we talked about uploading the timesheets. And again, we would build a proper flow for the timesheets if you're working with you, but just for you to play with, I've actually taken this a manual timesheet from Google, and I'm going to ask it to produce an output over here. So I would say a manual handwritten timesheet is uploaded, retrieve the data from that timesheet and display it in a tabular format where possible. So it's going to look at this image, and if you look at this handwriting is not that great, but with AI, the vision technology is advanced. It's able to, most of the time, accurately able to interpret this information. So right now it's actually looking at this image, analyzing all of the information. But if you look at this handwriting is not particularly great. Let's see what the results comes out to be. It's further analyzing and thinking. Sometimes it takes a lot more time to think. And as I said, if you are doing it for your organization, that rather than uploading every timesheet in your chat, you would be putting it in a folder, then chat would be actually grabbing that and then putting it in a Google Sheet. But it's able to actually look at the handwritten text and able to identify all of this information in tabular format. Now you can ask it to do it in columns and things like that, and it can do that exactly for you. But if you compare this information, you would see that it's pretty accurate in terms of how the information has been presented over here. So that was another use case. Now when I talked about reasoning, so you've got two versions of ChatGPT. You've got 4.0 and you've got O1 Preview. So O1 Preview is the one that uses advanced reasoning. I'm gonna give a prompt which would be a very advanced business case, and I'll show you the difference of how these two models, one without reasoning and one with reasoning, interacts. So for example, this is the prompt that I have given. You are a CEO of Pure Technologies, a company that has developed a revolutionary water, and I'm asking it to develop a market entry strategy, and I'm asking it to do a lot more things like a proper go-to-market plan and things like that. So what ChatGPT 4.0 does is it doesn't think about the information. It just starts to spit or starts to vomit the information that it has based on its mind. So it's not even thinking, it's not reasoning, it's just saying, okay, you want this is what we are going to do. We are going to go into primary market, which are developed nations, and then secondary market, which are emerging markets. The problem with that is it's already identified most of the countries as my market. This is not very relevant information. This is not well thought out. So it still requires me to do a lot more work. Now, if I give this information to O1 Preview, which is the model with reasoning, and ask it to do the same thing, what it does is rather than providing the answer, it starts to think, and you can actually see what it's thinking. So for this map Equipore's approach, it's crafting a comprehensive strategy, weighing market dynamics, addressing intellectual property issues, navigating regulatory challenges, mapping financial strategies, ensuring ethical practices. So it's still thinking. It's not producing the output. It's still thinking and showing me how it's thinking. And then finally, it has produced an output where it's identified very clear target market, which is water stressed developed region, identified California, USA, Australia, Southern Europe, and then emerging markets. And there's going to be a huge difference in the outputs that you would get from a normal GPT model versus ChatGPT o1, which is a model that uses reasoning for its day-to-day work. Now, I talked about a podcast that we produce out of the documentations. Let me quickly show you that podcast that we have produced for our security documentation, and then I'll show you how it was actually done.
Stuff from Enterprise Monkey, their what is it, information security management system,
That's the one.
and it looks like they take this stuff seriously.
They do very much so. It's quite impressive, actually.
So let's dive into this, huh? What stood out to you right away?
Well, I mean, right off the bat, they're ISO 27001 certified.
Okay,
Which-
and that's a big deal.
Yeah, that is not just some rubber stamp. It means they've met incredibly rigorous
So this goes
international
through
standards
my
for
whole
information.
processes.
005 incident management.
Organization needs to be prepared for.
Right, because something's bound to happen eventually.
Oh, absolutely. It's not a matter of if, it's when.
Exactly.
And they seem to get that.
So they've got a plan.
They do.
But what kind of incidents are we talking about here? You know, what are they preparing for?
So what it's doing is basically humanizing those boring processes and procedures, putting two people, a male and a female, talking about these from an external perspective, adding humor into it, adding context into it, and even thinking about the questions that people might have around that, and putting it as a podcast episode that you would find more amusing to hear and more amusing to listen to. What you could do to be able to do that is there's a tool by Google called Notebook LLM, where you can attach all of your documents. And then at the bottom, you would have this notebook guide. This allows you to do multiple things. It allows you to create FAQs, study guide, out of it, table of contents, timeline, briefing doc. And then, of course, you can create an audio overview that creates the podcast that you can download and then share it with your team members as well. So this is the podcast that has been produced. Oh, sorry, you're not able to see my screen. I'll take you through it again. So this is Notebook LLM that you are seeing over here, which is a device by Google. Now you can attach 50 different sources. You can attach big books over here. You can, if you're researching on something, you can do like big books over here. It has access to all of this information. Now you can create FAQs out of it, like the one that I have produced. You can create a timeline out of it, a briefing document. You can ask questions around it. You can say, okay, what does this look like? Describe the ways, how does the access management work, and so on. It is able to provide you that answer. But the way we produced that podcast was using this tool, which, if the podcast is not produced, says generate podcast, and then you are able to generate a podcast that looks at all of your documents and then provides you the content in a much easier digestible format. Now this tool was actually developed for researchers, but more and more it's being used by businesses to make their lives easier, make the comprehension easier for their staff members. Now we looked at Notebook LLM, we looked at ChatGPT, but we just looked at the chatting power of the ChatGPT. What I promised you today was that I'm going to demonstrate some of the workflows and automation that you can actually achieve through custom GPTs. So what is custom GPT is basically there's a capability in ChatGPT that you are able to create your own custom GPTs where you can train them for a particular purpose or a particular organization. I think I'll demonstrate them so that it's easier for you to understand. One of the custom GPTs that we have created for our organization is called HR Manual. So HR Manual is a tool for our team members if they've got any query, rather than digging into the procedures or going reaching out to the HR team, they can just type the question over here and say, how can I apply for remote working? And what it does, it goes back to my knowledge base and then identifies what is the step, and it comes up with the steps, say obtain a remote working license, apply for the license through remote working license form available on Zoho Creator. Once you do that, do this, and do that. And then I can see how can I apply for leave, and it would help me exactly provide you the right process of applying for leave and so on. And that goes if you've got a question around payroll, any particular policy. So for example, my system is not working. How do I raise a support request? You don't even need to say that. It will actually understand. And then it would say to raise a support request, access the IT help desk portal, and then it gives them the link of the help desk portal. Use your Enterprise Monkey credentials, submit a ticket, choose hardware. Even it sort of gives from like system not working and so on. So it just becomes that one place for any member in my team to be able to come and ask questions around HR. But interestingly, because I've got higher privileges, I can do some more advanced step with this. So let's create another version of HR manual. And suppose if we receive a new project and we have to find the right resources for that particular project. Now this HR manual is actually connected with my human resource management system, connected to my project management system. So it exactly knows what type of resources I have got, what are their skill set, and it can see their availability. So the question that I put over there is, I have a new project coming up on Python technology with huge focus on accessibility. Now I need Python, I need accessibility. Client is particular about attention to detail and requires prompt communication. Suggest the right team, including developers, testers, and tech lead, and their availability. Now that's gonna go in all of these different systems, fetch the information and say, okay, you need developers for Python accessibility. So Sheil and Faisal are good because they are skilled in Python and strong in accessibility. It also says, so Sheil is available next week, Faisal is available immediately, testers Sakshi and Adil are available immediately, they have got expertise in accessibility testing, and then tech lead Kareem, because he's strong in leadership, API integration, writing clean code, and that person is available immediately as well. So what it is doing is not only looking at the hard skills, but also looking at the soft skills like prompt communication of the people and attention to detail, and then identifying people from my team who would be able to work on this particular thing. Another use case could be, I am stuck in a SQL query. Who can help me with that? And that is a tool for developers, which sort of like, if you're stuck with something, you can just say, I'm stuck in this, I need help with this. And it can actually provide you the people who have got experience in that particular thing and provide you the right response. Another example of custom GPT, like what all you are seeing over here are the custom GPTs that we have built for organization. But let's go to Grant Reviewer Pro. So as a part of our work, we do a lot of research and development, and we apply for R&D grants. Now, most of the people think that the use case of ChatGPT or these large language models is to be able to produce the text. But the reality is not just about producing the text, but it can do a good assessment on the text as well. So I'm going to upload my initial draft of my submission, and then I'm going to ask it to evaluate the submission based on the rubric in tabular format, provide scoring and recommendation as well. Now, this custom GPT already has done all of the research on R&D submission. It knows what is the rubric that they evaluate on, what are the successful ones, and so on. So it is already well equipped. I don't need to tell it what it needs to do. I'm just saying evaluate submission based on rubric in tabular format, provide scoring and recommendation as well. And I'm going to press enter. It's going to look through that document and create a table based on the criterias that the government has specified for R&D submissions, and then score them and saying, okay, so with scientific feasibility, it scores at 8. It's clear, but the recommendation is this. Alignment with funding priorities is 7. Potential impact is 7. Team expertise and capability is 7. Budget resource allocation is 6, and so on. And it's actually telling me why this thing is what is the rationale and what are the recommendations that come out of it. But at the end, it actually gives me the recommendations for improvement, and it says enhance novelty, clarify alignment, expand, blah, blah, blah. Now I can actually ask it to, can you rewrite it for me? And then it will start to rewrite it for me as well. Or I can take these recommendations and feed them back into this to make sure that I am receiving a high score on my submission. Again, this is just one use case of analysis evaluation. You can take participants data, you can take any type of report, any type of logs, have a rubric, and make sure that it's analyzing accordingly. We're actually working with an award organization that do business awards, and they have got a rubric. So now when the submissions come in, it is able to look at those submissions and provide scoring recommendation based on that rubric. Of course, the judges provide their own recommendation, but sort of at least makes it easier for them to be able to identify any issues that they might have. And that's another use case of custom GPTs. Now, how do you create custom GPTs? You can actually click on this option called Explore GPTs, and there's an option to create GPTs. We don't have time for me to be able to show you how to create a GPT, but you can actually start to say what would start to write that what type of GPT builder you want. So for example, if you want like a proposal builder, like that allows you to build your proposals, or then you can do that. It assigns a name to it, and then you can continue to chat it and continue to train it. But essentially, what it is basically to your custom GPT, you can provide a name, you can provide a description, and then you can provide it instructions. And this is where in those instructions, you can provide it a lot more details about what should be the format for your proposal. Suppose if you want to develop a chat GPT to develop SOPs or processes, then you can provide the format over here, provide very clear instructions of how you want those processes to be created. And most importantly, you can upload files over here. So you can say, you can choose different files from your organization, and you can upload those files so that it is using your brand guidelines, your content, your previous submissions to produce the new submission, or your existing policies and procedures to create a new policy. You can decide what type of capabilities that your custom GPT needs to have, like web browsing, DALL-E image generation, code interpretation, or data analysis. Most of the times you would not need all of them, but you can do that. And that's how you create a custom GPT in a nutshell. There's a lot more that you can do with it. And once you start to play with its API, then you can start to connect some of these things to your internal organizational systems. That's what we have done. And it is proving out to be really beneficial for us and our clients so far. One final thing that I want to show you is a website called make.com. Now, make.com basically allows you to connect different apps within your system and produce different automations. So it could be one system that you connect with an AI system, and then it could perform multiple actions. So you can create multiple workflows through this, and it's completely no code. So you can actually start to play with it as well. Here are some of the templates that they have provided that you can use. Like, for example, if we have got data that is written in a Google Sheet, then it can be connected with OpenAI ChatGPT and then allow you with the data completion from the Google Sheet rows. So for example, you have got a query from a customer, but you don't have full detail. The AI can actually fill the details for you. Similarly, there are multiple use cases where you can connect Facebook, WordPress, your inventory management system, your CRM, connected with ChatGPT to perform a whole lot of different functions. Like if you look at it, there's a whole list of things that you can do, and can give you ideas about doing that. But in terms of building your own, you can actually start by building a new scenario from scratch. And you can say build from scratch, and you can say, okay, I want to start with, if a file is added to my Google Drive, if I receive an email, and then you can start to connect one item to another item to another item and build that flow. We are again short on time, so I won't be able to show you how to do that. But I'm pretty sure once you go into it, you'll start playing with it. You will be able to see and see a lot of automations happening in this case. Now, finally, like these automations and everything, they are all good. But the problem is that how do you go about identifying what type of automations to build, where to start, and where to go from here? So I'll share my presentation again. Okay. Perfect. So how do you get started on AI journey? So there are 3 simple steps. First step is to identify any problems, gap, or opportunities that you can. Second is that you document your requirements, and then finally identify the right AI toolset or build a custom one. So don't just jump on GPT or make.com and say, okay, what can I build? It's about identifying the problems first. What do you really want to build out of it? What is the problem? What is the gap? What is the opportunity that you're trying to solve? Now, how do you identify problems or opportunities? The first thing is to brainstorm with your team. Say, okay, what are those pain points? What is that problem that keeps us frustrated? What is that challenging thing that wastes a lot of time or money? And that's something we wish could be automated. That's a very simple way of looking at it. Another powerful way is to do an AI assessment survey. So we have got a survey template that we can provide to you. But basically an AI usage and productivity survey that asks questions around, okay, which of the following tasks take up most of your time? What do you find frustrating? And goes through all of different workplace experiences to identify, okay, what are some of those manual robot tasks that we would like to automate? And then you can produce reports from there. If you are interested in getting that free template, then if you type AI survey in the comments, we'll get back to you with that free template for the survey. You can import it in your Google Form, SurveyMonkey, or we can help you with that setup as well. But you can deploy it within your organization, and then we'll give you a prompt so that you can, when you export that data, you can put that directly in ChatGPT, and it will give you exactly what type of automation do you need in your organization. So that's the second way of implementing AI in your organization. That's the second way of identifying the problems that you have. And third way is to do process mapping. Now, this is something that if you haven't done so far, that I would highly recommend. But look at your processes, look at some of the processes that are most critical to your organization, map those processes in terms of each and every activity that is there, and then identify the robots in there, identify the tasks that are repeated, that needs to be done, but they are boring tasks, manual tasks that you want to automate. And once you identify those tasks, once you identify those problems or gaps, you can put them as requirement, and that's something that you would want to automate. So looking at your process and saying, okay, this is my current state. This is how my process works. Right now, I'm doing this stuff manually. I'm adding the sheet. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Then looking at what is my desired state? Where do I want to be? Like, do I want to be stuck in all of this paperwork, identifying mistakes and things like that? Or do I want to free myself and let these robots do all of this grunt work? And that's your desired state. Identify the gaps, and from those gaps you will create an action plan. And finally, once you have identified those gaps, you put them in requirements, and then from there you can identify the right AI toolset or build a custom one. You can start by playing with custom GPTs, make.com, but then once you are at a stage where you think, okay, this is something we would like to work on, this is something that we would like to solve, then you can actually reach out to a professional to help you build some of these automations. And I said some of them might be expensive, but most of them are not that expensive and very easy to achieve. So finally, reach out to us if you are excited about AI and automation, but you don't know where to start. That's okay. Even after with this webinar, if you think, I'm keen on investing in it, but I don't know where to start, that's all right. You can reach out to us and say, okay, we are excited, because sometimes we go into organizations where their board has requested that they do an AI strategy, but they don't have very clear picture on the problems that needs to be solved. So we go in there, do a proper analysis, do focus groups, work with their teams, identify all of the gaps, and from there develop an AI strategy. So that's something that we can help you with. If you have already identified a business problem but not sure how to solve it, and you're even not sure whether AI is going to be solving it, or it's going to be a tool or something, a combination of both, that's fine. Reach out to us. We can help you with that. We love solving problems. That's what we do. So come to us with a problem and we will tell you if we can solve it or not, or how you can go ahead and solve it as well. But there's no harm in actually asking and saying, okay, we have got this problem, and we would be happy to come back to you with a solution. And then if you already have a solution in mind, if you already have a clear idea of what you want to build, but you need help building it, again, you can reach out to us and we can help you building it as well. And it might be a complicated solution. We can say, okay, let's start with solving one problem at a time, develop a minimum viable product, and then take it from there. Now, I have not been able to respond to the comments, and it's already 1 hour, but I will be going back through the comments and responding to you in the comment section. But as I said, please feel free to reach out to us. You know where we are, you know where I am on LinkedIn as well. Feel free to reach out to us and get in touch, and let's get started on this AI journey. All the very best, and thank you so much for attending. Bye bye.